Yo, hello and welcome to the Lenko Show. This is episode number 84. I am your host, Alex Lenkowski, and today, this is welcome to 2024. This is the first episode of the new year, and we are hitting the ground running. You can tell in my voice, I've been a bit unwell over Christmas and New Year, not through excessive drinking or anything like that, just a bloody head cold, which has really irritated me, but it hasn't stopped me. So I've still carried on doing things as normal, had a great time with family, had a great time just chilling out, relaxing a little bit, and still being efficient with getting a few things done. Anyway, where else do you start other than the new year? You start with your goals. Everyone hits that reset button. So I'm going to talk about how to ultimately turbocharge your goals and why precision matters and how positive framing for your goals might actually be more useful than the usual kind of goals you might set and the kind of things that you might say to yourself and the kind of things you might be thinking about. So we're going to try and put a different spin on that. And once I've done that, I am going to set off on my first rant of the year. Yes, that's fucking right. Every single podcast, I'm going to try and include a little rant in every single podcast with hopefully some useful, workable information in it for you. This one today is all about low back pain, and it's based on a post I saw on, you guessed it, social media. Ugh, it really grates on me, but that is where we're starting. Anyway, before I get into that rant, I'm going to go through, obviously, it's 2024. Everyone's going to be goal setting. I have set mine already. I've already laid out my targets for the year. And I have got some specific numbers. I've got a few things that I always keep these very private, very, very personal. I keep them in a little journal where I write things down on a daily basis and include my day-to-day tasks. And I would suggest if you're not doing that, fucking start. What are you waiting for? There is no better way to make sure you get things done efficiently and quickly and the important things done than writing it down, getting it out of your headspace, making it real on paper, and then having the satisfaction of drawing a line through it. Not to mention the tasks that you've got done before you had a chance to write them down, then going back to your journal later in the day, writing them in, and then crossing them off. So it's a very pleasing thing. I find it very cathartic. So what I'm going to do is obviously I said I've got a set number of goals. I've got some things that I've specifically written down. I'm not going to share those with you, but what I am going to do is I am going to share some of the standards that I work to on a regular basis. So the first one for me is something that I started doing more and more towards the back end of last year, is actually taking the dog out more. He always goes out, but taking him out more on runs, getting him running, getting him fit, and ultimately for me, getting me fit, no matter what the weather, just getting out in the fresh air, going for a gentle jog and just trying to work that into the routine. That's because that's always the crux of it. It's always, oh, I haven't got time, or oh, it's cold, it's wet, it's this, that, the other. And there's always reasons not to do it, but I've made that more of a priority. So I'm going to be getting out multiple times a week. I've got 3+ times a week written down here. I've been out twice already this weekend. Today is actually the Thursday the 4th. I'm recording this. This is kind of my rest day, so I just trained a bit of upper body. Yesterday was a double whammy. It was legs followed by running. So I'm having a bit of a cool down day today, a bit of a recovery day. And then tomorrow I'm going to get out, hit a longer run with him, take him training and do the usual stuff. And then on top of that, the other thing I do is I'm going to read a book a month. That's one of the standards I've set. So I aim to get at least 10 pages every night. As soon as I hit those 10 pages, I'll carry on and it'll end up being 20, 30, sometimes more than that, especially if I get my head stuck into it. I'm actually reading the second of Jordan Peterson's books in a minute, which I've just started. It's actually very, very good. I highly recommend it. He's someone who I follow on a regular basis and love listening to his lectures, love listening and watching his YouTube videos, especially when he puts down people that talk utter fucking shit. I'm going quite heavy-handed with the language today, aren't I? Crikey, maybe that's something I need to clean up a little bit. Maybe that's something I need to arrange on my standards. Then Another thing that I am looking to do more and more is Duolingo. So I think learning languages is always quite an interesting thing. It's a good stretch for the brain. It's very difficult. It's challenging. And at the minute I am learning three. So two of them I've already got a pretty good foundation of, French and Spanish. So I did Spanish at A level, French at GCSE, did very well in both. I actually did better in my French. Went on and did Spanish in A level. And I'm also learning Polish. That's right. I am going back to my roots. So I'm going to continue doing my little Duolingo every single day. If you're on Duolingo, feel free to add me. What's my username? Let me bring my username up. I always forget what it is because, to be honest, I don't really know how I add people on this. So far, what's my streak? This is a complete sidetrack on the podcast, by the way. So far, the streak is at 94. And if you want to add me, my username is Alex, then Lenko, Lenko. That's my username on Duolingo. So if you're on it, get on it. Let's get supporting each other, get making each other better. Then, in addition to doing those three pretty simple things, I mean, it's hard to set. They're kind of the little things that I'm adding more of, should we say, and I'm making a bit of a focal point of that at the minute. But other than that, the usual stuff that I do, the routine, I mean, I'm fairly happy with it. And I feel like I'm actually making reasonable progress with it. Obviously, you could probably pull it apart and there'll be a million things you might want to do differently at some point further down the line. If I look back on this and go, why were you doing that? Why were you not doing something else? I'm going to consistently try and get one of these podcasts out to you every single week. We're 1 for 1 so far in the year. We will have the 100th episode coming up this year. That's what that means. I'm not sure when that be, about 16 weeks away. So does that take us to April, sometime in April, possibly the 100th episode? That'll be absolutely class. And I'm going to try and post more and more on my Instagram and on my YouTube as well. So if you're not following me on those things, make sure you are, because I will be active on there. And I've also expanded. I'm trying to do more and more with my own business with regards to helping people specifically. So I have got a kickers program, kicker strength and conditioning program that is launching on Monday. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be good. That's a 4-month, 16-week program in total, and it is fully directed at being faster, more powerful, building some solid foundational strength and helping kickers generally not just become better at kicking and get more distance in the kicks, but also just be better athletes. Because let's face it, kickers are the dobbies on the American football team. So it's time for that to change. So what I would recommend as well, in addition to what I've said there, for you personally, if you've set goals, but you haven't set a standard, if you haven't set the pathway for it and the behaviors that you need to implement on a day-to-day basis, then look at that. So you might have your goals written down, but then think, okay, well, how am I going to get to that level? How am I going to get my, let's say for American football, for some of you guys that are listening, how am I going to get my 40-yard sprint time down to a 4.6 or a 4.5, or dare I even say a 4.4 and beyond? How are you going to get there? Are you willing to get down to the athletics track, get in the athletics club, join that and train in that very direct way multiple times? Or are you going to sacrifice the time doing that to go and do other things? You have to weigh up how it fits in your lifestyle. So think about the specific behaviors that you need to start displaying to help you along the way. The next thing, and this is probably the most important thing, the bit to actually help you set better goals and create that clarity, give you that direction, the purpose and motivation to achieve what you want to achieve this year, is making sure that you have got that specific measurable target, but you're framing it in the right way. So we hear people all the time, they might say, oh, I want to quit smoking. Well, you're looking at it from a viewpoint of losing. It's a probably, I don't know whether you could say it's a negative, yeah, probably a negative framing goal, negatively framed goal. Same thing in terms of losing weight. Oh, if I want to lose 10 kilos. Similar sort of thing. You're focusing on the loss rather than the positive aspects of, well, actually, no, before I get into that, let's break it down. So let's say you do quit smoking. You've achieved the goal of quitting smoking, but then what? You need to make sure you then go and set another goal and understand and realize that there is another level to it, not just that. What quite often happens is I need to quit smoking, or I need to quit alcohol, I need to quit gambling, or I need to quit any other, whether it's an addiction or whether it's just a negative behavior that isn't addictive but isn't helpful. If you quit it, you go, okay, cool, job done. You relax and then you fall back into your old pattern. It takes time, effort, and energy to make sure that you're nailing those habits and you're actually sticking to it. So the focus needs to be on, well, I want to quit this, and then this is the next level. Have that planned out, have it mapped out. We speak about it being that roadmap. Well, what do you do when you go around that corner and you pass that? Where's the next destination? So you need to have that planned out. Anyway, not just that, but in terms of positive framing, you could even rephrase your target. You could even rephrase your goal. So rather than saying, I want to quit smoking, you could go, I want to enjoy the benefits of a smoke-free life, for example. Or rather than, I want to lose 10 kilos, you could go, I want to lose 10 kilos to, I want to enjoy the benefits of feeling lighter, faster, and more athletic. I want to look sick in the mirror. I want to look absolutely mint. I want to be a useful human, be athletic, be powerful, and start thinking about the positive aspects associated with that. So I always talk about goal settings in terms of a push and pull. You get the push from the negative side and the pull towards the positive. So it accelerates you forwards even faster. It turbocharges it for you. That's what we're aiming for. So you need to think about the way you verbalize your goal in your head and on paper as if you've already done it. So you can think, oh, well, if I want to enjoy being faster, lighter, more athletic, you can visualize that. You can see it. You understand exactly what it looks like rather than the arbitrary, I want to lose 10 kilos. Well, how does that look? How do you feel? It's a lot more difficult to kind of distinguish that final outcome in that sense. So in terms of feeling lighter, faster, feeling more athletic, you can picture that straight away. You understand how you're going to look if you feel that way, if you are lighter, if you are faster, if you are more athletic, if you're able to jump further and do all those things. It creates a different picture in your mind's eye and you get pulled towards it much more so than if you kind of just stuck down, well, I just want to lose 10 kilos. And then I can lose 10 kilos again because I'll put it all back on. And then I can lose another 10 kilos and go through that loop. And it's not, is it any wonder that we all end up going round and stop myself there? Is it any wonder that we all end up going round in circles, achieving the same goals again and again and again? Because that's the pattern we get stuck in. So it's time to break that pattern and nail down some of those specific goals, frame them in a positive way. If you want to discuss this with me at all, drop me a message on social media, drop me a message on Instagram. I would be more than happy. I'll be delighted to sit down and have a conversation with you about these things. So get to it. Don't waste any time on it. If you haven't set your goals yet for 2024, get doing it now. Now, let me pull up my notes. So this is a post I saw on someone's Instagram feed earlier today. I think it's bad advice. So what I'm going to do, pull it up first and I'll read it out to you. Okay. What all I'm going to do, please understand from this point until I declare otherwise, these are not my words. This is me repeating what someone else has posted, and then I'm going to rip it apart. All right. Here we go. There is a myth that in the rehab space that back pain occurs due to a lack of core strength. The myth also states that your core muscles are what keep your spine stable. Because of this, practitioners are constantly prescribing isometric core exercises for people with back pain. If you are prescribing core isometric exercises, bird dogs, side planks, dead bugs, etc., then all you are doing is you are providing exercises that don't stress your spine much at all because you aren't moving the spine. For the people who have just gotten injured, this might be helpful. If you don't progress towards exercises that move your spine, then you are actually doing more harm than good and are beating a dead horse. In order to build resiliency in your spine, you need to challenge it with exercises that move and or load the spine. Decreasing the load on it only deconditions your spine and not strengthens it. Sorry, decreasing the load on it only deconditions your spine, not strengthens it. I feel more stupid as I'm reading this. Anyway, that's it. Quote over. Actually, no, sorry, the final one. You can do dead bugs, bird dogs, and other core isometrics for back pain, but that should be at the very beginning. That's the final caveat. Now, let's break this. Now, I'm going to try and break this down bit by bit. So the first thing that gets said is there is a myth in the rehab space that back pain occurs due to a lack of core strength. Well, I'm not in the rehab space per se. I'm in the business of performance. I'm in the business of getting people faster, stronger, more resilient, less likely to suffer with injury, and ultimately bomb-proofing them so that they are effective and efficient in their sport or in life, whether they're a personal training client or whether they are a sports performance athlete. Now, that is not a myth. The stronger your core is, the more resilient, the more robust, the more strength and control you have over every other movement pattern. Now, if you can stabilize and control your spine and you can control the intra-abdominal pressure, you can brace and then coordinate your limbs, it gives you a better chance of success. It's going to give you greater stability on impact. It's going to give you better power when it comes to collisions. It's going to mean that you are more robust and less susceptible to being completely folded. So that's not a myth. I don't understand why that's a myth. So I've got it here. The definition of a myth is a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people or explaining a natural or social phenomenon and typically involving supernatural beings or events. So I'm not sure where the myth is in this. Or the other one, more relevant, a widely held but false belief idea. So if the myth that back pain occurs due to a lack of, that's not a myth. Okay, increasing your strength and increasing your core strength is actually going to result in better results than if you neglect it and you become like, no one benefits from being weak. No one's benefited from a lack of core strength. Like being able to create and stabilize, create stability, and like I said, control that intra-abdominal pressure around your spine is always going to be beneficial. It's very useful in powerlifting. There isn't a single sport where it isn't beneficial. And don't come at me saying that darts is not, like, I think I might have even done a poll on this a long time back where I was asking, asking everybody, asking you, my audience, to name a single sport where core stability wasn't useful. And ultimately you didn't get there, right? You failed. It's always useful. It's always relevant. If you want to learn, if you want to be able to stand up and not just collapse on yourself, it is useful. And then also it says the myth also states that your core muscles are what keep your spine stable. Well, if they don't, what does? I mean, I know they're a combination of a few things, but if you take the musculature away, well, then what? You won't be able to move. You won't be able to control your posture. You won't be able to brace. Think about how fragile you're going to be if you take away your core musculature. I can't believe that this is even a thing. But anyway, we go on. So because of this, practitioners are constantly prescribing isometric core exercises for people with back pain. Yes, okay, core isometrics are a foundational thing that you would prescribe to someone with low back pain. Typically, and I'm gonna take this straight from Dr. Stuart McGill, who is probably the world's leading expert when it comes to low back pain. So for any of you that follow Lane Norton, you'll know that he had a lot of injuries through his career and issues with his low back. He went to Stuart McGill, and I believe they worked together as a partnership, and he, again, got Lane Norton back to performing and getting him some incredible results. So what we need to do when someone has low back pain is we need to uncover the injury mechanisms and the links between them, the pain, the recovery, and the performance training, to understand the pain triggers and figure out what is causing it. And then we can learn what to do and what not to do. And if we can figure out the difference of where the pain is coming from, like any movement habits that might be causing it, there might be certain things that clients do, whether it's reaching down, touching their toes first thing in the morning, trying to stretch and train flexibility and get a bit of movement. Probably one of the worst things you can do. We'll go over that reason. But basically going through poor movements that you're executing on a regular basis, and then also having a look, like, where is the pain located? Is it bone, muscle, joint? Is it disc related? And once we can figure out the kind of the postures and positions that are causing people pain, we can start to work a way around it, and we can be creative. We can be quite savvy. So the three key aspects to figuring this out for back pain. So postures, motions, and loads. So posture is going to be the position that you're in. Number two, motion is how you move. And then load is typically the forces associated with it. So if we know that when we deadlift, what's the posture like? Is our spine in the correct position? Are we stacking it properly? If we've got excessive thoracic curve or we've got a little bit of lumbar flexion, do we need to eradicate that? Do we need to improve the posture? If the answer is yes, cool, do that. And we can do that without weight. We can do that just by practicing the position, sitting upright, and we can add a few little external cues. We can take them away from the specific exercise and teach the posture, teach the position that you're supposed to be in. The next thing, motion, how you move. Is the barbell close into your center of mass, or are you hanging it further away? If you're doing a kettlebell swing, are you keeping the kettlebell close underneath your hips so that you can drive through the legs? Or is the kettlebell coming really low down by your ankles, where you're then having to excessively hinge and you're putting a lot more shear through your spine and you're less in control of the weight, and it's a much more difficult position. If the motion is the problem, if there is a specific way you get in and out of your car in the morning, can we fix that? Can we eradicate that? If there's a way that you pick things up in work, or if it's boxes, or if you have to move things around, is there a way that you're doing it which is causing that aggravation? And then we've got the load. Is the weight itself a problem? Is the compression that you're putting through the discs, is that the issue? If we can work through those things, we can start to figure it out, and we can plan exercises accordingly. We can teach new movements. We can teach new patterns. I've had people before where I've had conversations with them about how they brush their teeth. Like if they're leaning over the sink, they're putting a lot of shear through their spine. And it's that low level irritation where you don't do it and you go, oh, that's really painful. So that you come away from it. It's kind of, you hang out in that position and it's not great. You're bending over the sink, you're really hunched over, you're scrubbing your teeth. Well, what if you didn't do that? What if you had a different strategy for it? What if tying your shoelaces in the morning was the problem? And rather than bending over to get down to your foot, what if you actually elevated your foot so you don't have to bend down as far? Would that be beneficial? And we can start to create different strategies and different movement patterns for actually figuring this out. I stopped myself again there. This is going well. I am liking this. We can start to figure out different strategies. So I'm sorry, but I'm not having it that that practitioners are just constantly prescribing isometric core exercises for people with low back pain. It's not true. One of the elements that we do prescribe is isometric core exercise, because as I said, you can teach someone the correct posture, then you can get the right movement and you can layer it on. So they're a fundamental starting point. Isometrics are a great way to learn any exercise as well, by the way. If you want to learn a lunge pattern and you haven't got the strength to do the reps and go full range, go partial range, hold an isometric. Beautiful idea. Then the even to disagree with it again, the number one thing I recommend for people with low back pain is go outside, get walking. Go on a goddamn walk. Stretch your legs, get your arms and legs swinging, move your body. One of the big problems that comes about is because with low back pain, one of the key causes for it is because people hang around for too long in the same position. Obviously, it's become a bit of a fad to get a standing desk and to set up your workspace. And we've got all these different health and safety people in offices now that are making millions of pounds just from telling people, oh, you need to do this. Oh, well, let's get you this bit of equipment. Sorry, but I can save businesses, all of that. Get up and move. Go and move your ass. Rather than writing an email to someone to ask them a question, if they're just down the other end of the office, take a walk. Go and speak to them in person. Oh, but it's not time efficient. Sorry, but it's better for you, and stop being a lazy fuck because you're making excuses. I let myself slip then, but that's fine. We can make do and live with that. Right. Next thing. I want to see where I kind of made more notes on this anyway. Okay, we'll go into if you are prescribing core isometric exercises such as bird dogs, side planks, dead bugs, etc., then all you're doing is you're providing exercises that don't stress your spine much at all because you aren't moving the spine. Correct. Because one of the things that happens when you do excessively flex your spine, so let's say sit-ups, typically they get bastardized because they flex and hinge at a particular point. Now, if you were to continue to do that over and over and over again, once the demands of the exercise exceed the capabilities of the tissue to be able to sustain it, that's when you're then going to start getting injury. So if you do thousands and thousands and thousands of sit-ups, eventually there's going to be a point where it starts to break down. If you're getting that excessive flexion through your spine, eventually it's going to take its toll. Now, what happens is it's almost like getting a scab or kind of callus in your hand. If you have a situation like that, you have to let it recover. Because if you go back into it and you go through, oh, well, let's go and get more flexion. Well, we know that flexion, I talked about motions a minute ago. We know that flexion is going to be a key contributor to the pain in the first place. So all we're going to do is essentially pick at the scab. You know, we're already bleeding, we're already cut, we're already hurt. We're in the process of recovery because we've stopped doing it. Now we're going to go back and do it and just pick the scab off and go again. And if you keep doing that, eventually it's going to cause a more substantial problem. Now, this is where I kind of have a pretty substantial idea with it. Because if you're doing something that's causing you pain, why not just stop doing the thing that's causing pain in the first place? Do you know? Pull the shovel down, bro. Stop digging that hole. Like, down tools, relax. Don't do anything. Just don't make the situation worse for yourself. And now the next bit, however, if you don't progress towards exercises that do move your spine, again, moving the spine, I'd love to know what exercises we're talking about specifically, because most of the exercises I can think of, whether it's sprinting, squatting, deadlifting, running, swimming, cycling, typically the spine is in a fixed position and it's the arms and legs that are doing the work, and all the force is then just being transmitted through the spine. And as another example, if you're playing rugby or American football and you go into contact and you end up moving your spine in contact, that is a bad thing to do. You need that thing to be stable and solid on contact, so you're not actually bending and breaking at any point, and all that force going into the collision isn't meeting at one particular point where there is going to be an excessive amount of damage done. It's completely stupid. Anyway, shall we move on? So, in order to build resiliency in your spine, you need to challenge it with exercises that move and or load the spine. Decreasing the load on it only deconditions your spine, not strengthens it. Right, okay. As I mentioned there, exercises that move the spine, like what? Like sit-ups? Like if you're just going to consistently flex and extend the spine, or do lateral flexion and extension, I suppose, a bit of rotation through your upper back. There are minimal things there. What we're actually looking to do to callus and develop, and like, this is the way I always think about, when I mentioned before about it being a scab and you're essentially just going picking at it again. What you want it to be more like is like callus in your hands. So if you've been holding a barbell, you know how that feels, or if you've done loads of pull-ups and you get that rough, hard bit of skin, you want that to recover and become even tougher over time. That's what we need to do with the spine. So we need to expose it to these compressive forces and allow it to recover and allow it to develop and get stronger over time, rather than just beating the crap out of it, which this person seems to think we should do again and again and again. So simply adding in loads more movement of things that are probably causing problems in the first place is a stupid idea. Now, here's a better idea. Here's a thought for you. If you are injured, decreasing the load would actually be a sensible idea. What about stopping hurting yourself? Try that. So I think that kind of caps off my first rant of 2024 on the podcast. I would suggest, if you are struggling with low back pain, feel free to drop me a message. Feel free to get in touch. Please, I didn't even share the account or the name of this personal social media because I was that irritated by it, and it just doesn't merit the attention it is, the attention it's seeking. It's one of those things that's so stupid that it bewilders me that people are putting that kind of information out there. And there's probably things I've said or done before that hit the same way, but I would hope I've corrected myself, or I'm in the process of doing that. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt from that point of view. But yeah, if you're struggling with low back pain, you need to figure out what's causing it in the first place, stop doing it, and then start building from a sensible start point. Isometrics are a good way to do that. Go out and do brisk, fast walking on a regular basis, because that's really good for getting the arms and legs moving. It gets the hips going, and it's going to activate your obliques and the rest of the musculature, which does, in fact, play a role in stabilizing your spine. So that will conclude us for episode number 84. I will be back again next week and every Friday as usual. Again, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you're getting the episodes regularly. And if you've got any questions for me, make sure you hit me up on social media. If you want to get on board with the kicking program, it kicks off on Monday. You are running out of time. I will be launching this at multiple points through the year, but if you want to get involved from the very start, then drop me a message very, very soon and let's get the ball rolling. That is it from me. Lenko out.